Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 147, and I had a pleasure of talking to Joe Oakley, a financial advisor, author, and podcast host dedicated to helping middle-class families eliminate financial anxiety through education and practical guidance. As the owner of New Horizon Wealth Management, Joe brings over 15 years of experience and holds multiple licenses and certifications, including CFP and CFS. He's passionate about making a lasting impact. His mission is to empower over 100,000 families to build more secure and enjoyable lives through accessible financial resources. Enjoy the conversation. The practical tools and the tips that he shares through this conversation was a gift. So thank you and enjoy the conversation. Hello and welcome to Joe. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing great today. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you on the show, not only from your experiences from a financial perspective, but also the enriching drive and passion you have in supporting other people on their own journey of financial stability and freedom, which is perhaps a little bit of a different lens that we have been raised with to look at financial, to enjoy this moment that we have in all its capacities, financial and otherwise too. So I'm looking forward to getting to that with you. So thank you.
Fantastic. Can't wait to jump into it all.
So I'm going to start off with a really big, bold question of, with all that you've been through in your life, be it personally and on a career professional level too, what do you believe about yourself? And do you feel it defines who Joe is at this current moment of time?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a really strong drive that kind of developed, and it developed through a lot of things that were difficult through adversity. And so I'm very big in believing that going through adversity, going through things that are difficult, especially when we're young, even though it's not something we really wish for our kids, we try to have our kids be healthy and happy and all that stuff. But it can really be very, very helpful in forming that strong core that I feel like I have and I'm able to share now with my family because of the things that I went through. So just kind of a little bit of a history on me. I grew up in northern New Jersey and was the son of a father who was a VP at a large roofing company. We had a nice house. He drove a BMW. We went on all these vacations every year. And then it kind of all fell apart. So it happened with my father going through back surgery, getting addicted to oxy, and then that led to divorce. It led to us having to sell our home. It led to my mother going back to work after 15, 16 years. And so all of those things you would say, hey, that's probably not anything you would wish on someone, but it
Right.
created such a strong foundation for me. It made me have to step up with the responsibilities that I had, being the oldest of three children. I had two younger sisters, so living with my mom and them, and reformatted the way that I view the world and view money, especially as how it interacts with that. Because it just created such a bigger appreciation for what my mom did, for going back and working and earning those things to keep us in the home that we were able to stay in, after we downsized, still within the same town and everything. So those difficulties were so important in shaping me. And it's funny because if that all did not happen, I don't know if I would necessarily like the person that I would have wound up being with, just assuming, money was always plentiful, assuming that having more things is what the point of working and life maybe were. So it's funny how these things that happen to you, they can either be viewed sometimes as really detrimental, or they can also be looked at for the opportunities that might be within them. So that really had such an impactful, presence on me for who I am today.
Yeah. What a story and what a journey. And kudos to you for taking that lens rather than rather than the lens of victimhood, if you will. But I imagine you've been through that cycle because it's a natural human emotion of watching one's life fall apart.
Yeah, and I definitely don't want it to sound like everything happened and the next day I'm like, this is a huge opportunity. You
Right.
know, it takes some time. It takes
Yes,
a journey. It takes some, maturing over time. You have to
for
go
sure.
through that sorrow, feeling like why me, that
Hmm.
victim
Hmm.
mentality. But
Hmm.
then, taking it into perspective and having great people around you as well that could
Yeah.
support you in
Hmm.
your journey to eventually see the positives or the opportunities that are now available to you, that different
Right.
lens that you have that a lot of people don't have,
Yeah.
and using that to your advantage to make a really great impact in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And was it that particular moment of, I want to say that crisis of looking at what does my future projection look like? This has happened with your dad, and your whole family life has shifted. Was that the pivotal moment for you, or was there something else, perhaps a precursor of that, or even after that process that said, no, this is the industry that I want to go to? Because potentially you could have stepped into any industry, really.
Yeah, it's funny. So the way that we follow our careers, especially in America, tends to be very much dependent on what our parents do. So my wife Lauren originally went to school to be a teacher, and it just so happens to be that her mom was a teacher. I went
Right,
into business because just so happened that my dad was in business. And
right.
so we tend to see what's familiar, and
Yeah,
that way we can see what's possible. And when we
right.
see that's possible, it's easier for us to go in that direction. If my dad was a construction worker or was an engineer or was a
Hmm.
doctor, I would imagine that that would have paved a clear path for me to say, hey, I could picture myself doing this
Yes,
because I see my father doing this. So
yes.
business is what I got into, I think, very much because of my father. And when I went to college, I thought, again, being from northern New Jersey, I thought I was going to be commuting into New York City, being
Mm.
on Wall Street, working 80 hours a week and trying to make a lot of money until I burnt out. That was kind of the
Mm-hmm.
assumption. And thank God that I had a professor who brought in a gentleman who was referred to themselves as a financial planner, which I had never
Right,
heard of before. And when
right.
he went through what I do is I work with normal families, let's say middle class families, and I help them go through their investments, their insurance, their cash flow, go through all these things to help organize it for them so they don't have to worry about it and help them get to achieve the goals in life that they set out for themselves. It's
Mm.
like, that sounds fantastic. Like, definitely
Yeah,
sign me up for that. That
yes.
sounds way better than the last plan. Throw that last plan out. Let's switch gears to this.
Right.
And God was looking over me. He put me in an internship here at this my firm, New Horizons. The founder and owner of the firm was named Bob Giraffa, is named Bob Giraffa, and he became my mentor. And
Mm.
so being partnered with him now over 15 years later, he's retired. I now own the firm. And
Mm.
so it's just been a tremendous journey for me. But again, having people look after me. So you said, what was the pivotal moment? That was a pivotal
Right.
moment for what
Yes,
happened when I was younger. But then getting into a position where I had people to mentor me,
yes.
that was huge. So I now have two very influential mentors in my life, father figures. So it's funny how it works out. Like, I don't have
Hmm.
my biological father in my life at all.
Yes.
However, these two other gentlemen have become such impactful mentors for
Mm.
me. And that
Yes.
was kind of what really brought it all around. So you have the opportunity based on what happened when I was younger, but then
Hmm.
you need people to help guide you as well
Absolutely.
to lean into those good parts, lean into how
Yeah.
you want that experience to change you. So I was so fortunate to have that happen to me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, and it's commendable that you allowed it to happen because we can often be in situations and places where things will present themselves, people will present themselves, and we may cower back. We may not seize the moment and seize the opportunity for really what it is, rather than get caught and locked in a headspace or in a different mindset that's not going to serve us. So
Absolutely.
it's up to us to take on that opportunity. So
Hmm.
well done for you. Well done for you. What do you feel are some of the attributes that connect you to your purpose, that allows you to support other individuals fully in their entirety from a financial perspective in living their goals and perhaps giving them just a little bit of a different vantage point for future projection, but also for yourself, because it seems like you have perhaps somewhat of a relatively balanced home life because based on your experiences, you've made a conscious effort to nurture that maybe a little bit more based on what you've been through. Because as individuals, we've become hyper aware of our past to make sure we don't do the same for our future or do the same again, repeat it. So, what are those attributes that you've installed in yourself, be it learned consciously or unconsciously, in your awareness that connects you to what you do?
Yeah, so I mean the again, Bob, the first mentor that I had here at my firm is the person that really helped me see the opportunity of it. And so, he's a very caring person,
Mhm.
and in this industry you get a lot of people that are more, let's say, type A, that are
Right.
trying to very much make money, very much trying to just grow, numbers on a piece of paper, and that was never the tone that he set for this company. So again, I feel so fortunate that he was the initial kind of barometer for how you act and how you help other people. So he's instilled in me a desire to learn. He instilled in me a desire to really help people more than anything else. And so that, from a professional standpoint, kind of set the tone for everything that we do. And that helps us, that mentality helps us really connect with people in a better way, because it's not about just trying to have your investments grow to as large as they can. I mean, everybody likes big numbers on a piece of paper,
Hmm.
but it's
Hmm.
more how your relationship is with money. Money is
Right.
really just a tool. Money is not a goal
Right.
in of itself. So when we meet with people, part of what we talk about is money, but the bigger part of what we talk about is what would make you happy, what would make life more enjoyable to you, and really focusing on those things. Because my job is not to help to get people to retire early. It's not to help them, maybe take as many vacations as they want to take. It's to help them do what they want to do. So sometimes that means retiring early. Sometimes that means more vacations. Sometimes that means, helping kids go to school. But it's really about them and asking great questions. So as I train new advisors here, I say you have to be a phenomenal question asker. That's the most important thing, because we're really needing to understand them. And so I try to bring that mentality home as well, because the experiences that I had when I was younger, combined with that, make me really want to be a phenomenal father. It makes me really want to be a phenomenal husband and be there in ways for my family that were different. And that, asking questions and communicating well, that is such an important part. That, when you look at what's taught in school, and math is great and algebra is great and literacy is great, but being able to communicate at a really high level with other individuals and ask great questions, and have that empathy component that I was taught here and that I take outside of my life, that is such a great vital skill that I feel like I have, that transcends everything that I'm able to do. So
Mhm.
yeah, those are the things that I try to really lean into, that have been fortunate enough again to
Yeah,
be developed in me.
exactly. And they're beautiful. And it puts us in a position of taking control and being more aware of who we are, which ultimately, from my vantage point, the more we can know and step into our own awareness of who we are, the better we become. So therefore, it influences our environment, the relationships, the people, the engagement, and all of those pieces too have a huge domino effect on that. So,
Yeah, yeah. And just seeing other people again doing things that you didn't, like we talked before about, if your mom is a teacher or your dad is in business, like you could see yourself doing those. Surrounding yourself with people that are doing these positive things allows you to see yourself doing those positive things. I think a lot of times we look back on our past and say, oh, I'm like this because, and that's one of my limitations. So looking back and trying to reshape it, and being around other people that might be viewed as having a similar past but are doing a different forward action, is really powerful. So like I have my first book coming out this year, but I would have never thought I could write that book if I didn't see the founder of the company write his own book. So just again, being around people that are kind of stretching what you see as an opportunity, just looking at what the possibilities are around you and not limiting yourself, just because we kind of get to invent everything around us. A lot of it's made up, and
That's
so we
right.
want to try to shape that. And a big part of that is who you're surrounding yourself with. And are they people that are saying, I can't because, I can't because, I can't because,
Hmm.
or those people saying, you know what, I think I can. If so
That's
who are
right.
you surrounding yourself around is such a big influence on
It
your
is.
perspective and what you see yourself being able to do.
And it comes back to that topic of being aware. So it's consciously being aware who is in your sphere.
Hmm.
What is the narrative? What is the dialogue? What is the internal narrative that we often run, consciously or unconsciously? So you've obviously taken a very conscious effort to be in the space you are, to be mentored and receive that kind of guidance from your mentors and your environment, which expands the awareness of who we actually are.
Yeah, intentionality is a huge part of daily life. It's not going to just happen to you. It's not, someone's not going to knock on your door and say, "Hey, can I be your mentor?" You look at
Right.
the people around you. How can you connect with them? How can you add to their lives? How can you be and so usually when you give out, it tends to naturally just come back. So
Yeah,
instead of looking around you right now after hearing this and saying, "Who can help me?" Look
that's right.
around you, say, "Who can I help?" And
Right.
then they're going to want to give back to you as well. So
Exactly.
yeah, so you still control the action. You don't have to wait for someone to knock on your door to say, "I want to be your mentor." You can control your action today with your awareness and your intentionality.
It's an important piece that we can often forget because life has a way of being in a rhythm, and we can get into this pattern real fast and do things by barely being conscious because it
Hmm.
just happens on autopilot. So it's an interesting way of living as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to fight our biology a little bit. We want to, we want to make things easier a lot. Want to use less energy. Our brain is always
Yeah,
trying to look for these shortcuts. But sometimes we gotta mix it up a little bit. We gotta go
exactly.
against that because it's better for us in
Yeah,
the long term.
exactly, right? So what we also know is the path of growth and success comes by being conscious and comes by being in a place of being aware, but being uncomfortable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any change that happens is something that's going to be somewhat, somewhat uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So, excuse me. So embracing that change, kind of bringing it on in a way that you're being intentional. It's not just happening to you, but you're controlling it. You're
Yes,
the one that's instilling it or taking that first step forward.
exactly.
Is a much better way, and you still feel in control even though it's
Yeah,
change.
yeah. What do you feel are some of the challenging pieces that you worked on overcoming on a much deeper level? So, yes, you had the guidance and the support from these people called mentors and these other influences in your life. Were there certain components, um, attributes, or learned behavior that took a little longer to get through based on your history and based on, I want to say, the traumatic experience of your family breakdown, so to speak,
Mhm.
which not only from what our previous conversation was, not only is related to your dad, but also related to your sister as well. So that had shaken your entire world in its entirety, really.
Yeah, so I think the two most important parts off of that, and my sister you mentioned, so my sister struggled her whole life with mental illness. She was brilliant. She went to college, got a 4.0, so she was this, educationally brilliant person. But she suffered from borderline personality disorder, and so that made it very hard for her to have healthy long-term relationships with friends, with family members. It made it much more difficult for her. And medication was also, including oxy, was something that also led to her health decline. For people out there that don't know, they wind up treating mental pain, like with like physical pain at a
Yeah.
certain point, at least with my sister, they did, and they start bringing in things like oxy and things of that nature, which, health wise deteriorate you very, very quickly. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, so that as well. And when I talked about communication before, that was a big part of it because people that suffer from that, they have a special therapy called DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. And
Hmm.
while it was developed specifically for borderline patients, if everybody in the world was taught how to do this, which is just like, being respectful of other people, validating them, trying to see it from their perspective, cutting an understanding that I can't control what other people
Hmm.
do. It's radical acceptance, just this is the way it is.
Right.
I think we all would be a lot healthier. So again, being taught some of those skills are things that I use in everyday life, again, with family, with
Yeah.
friends, in work. And so, communication was a big thing that I learned from my sister. As far as things that I struggled with the most, one of the biggest things was continuously wanting to learn. So I was always very good in school, and when you go through some traumatic things, a lot of times you want control. So if the rest of your life is kind of going all over the place, you want to
Hmm.
control, and a lot of ways to control is to kind of separate yourself out from people. And so I was wanting to kind of have the mentality of, I'm strong. I can do it on my own. I don't need anybody else's help. I don't really
Hmm.
need to, I'm already smart. And those were things that were very limiting for me for a while. So they have, good side effects at times.
Right.
But as far as my growth as a human being, they were limiting overall on the long term.
Right.
So opening myself up to wanting to always learn was something that, again, the my mentor here is, he taught me to always be continuously learning. And that was a very big thing, being open with your past and being free to kind of talk about that and not looking at it as a limiting factor. That was
Hmm.
also, something that I had to overcome. So those were things that over time now have made me just completely exponentially opened up the way I see things and the direction that I could go in. Because when you're not being held back by those things,
Hmm.
it's so freeing. So I've heard people say before, anything that somebody says to you that kind of bothers you or somebody that you don't get along with, it's really just a reflection on you. You should tell them thank you because they're reflecting what you still are not completely comfortable with. So for
Right.
me, if somebody challenged me intellectually, I would get defensive. I would could become
Hmm.
combative because that was one of my insecurities, basically, that,
Yeah.
I needing to be the smartest, and that restricted me from looking for opportunities to learn. So, that was probably the most challenging thing for me. And then, it's just like I said, exponentially opened things up when I progressed past at least where I was
Yeah.
before with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a huge commitment to be in that somewhat humble space on a constant basis. It's pretty courageous too, because recognizing that there's a conflict or there's a discussion that's happening that's highlighting your own weakness is pretty humbling to say, okay, maybe I am wrong. Or perhaps there's another vantage point that I can look at this and learn from it. So it's a journey. And like you said, I agree. If more people took that stance and were open and receptive to looking at things from that vantage point, I think the world would be a lot different.
I can't imagine that it wouldn't be. Yeah.
A lot different, absolutely. Not just putting that in the political stance. Wow. Yeah, that's a whole different conversation, I guess. But
Yeah, that could go on for quite some time if we get into
Yeah, I'm
that.
sure. I'm sure too. Yeah, yeah. So you've written this book, and what you'd shared also with me before we hit record was you're putting some courses together, excuse me, that will support individuals on their financial journey to that too, as well, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So we work with about 200 households, and I'm so proud of the work that we do with those 200 households. But
Hmm.
I want to help like 100,000 people. And when you do the math, our company has to really grow very significantly to go
Yes.
from 200 to 100,000. So directly
Right.
servicing 100,000 people is not possible. So then we started to think, well, how can we exponentially help more people in a different way? So we can't work with them one-on-one. There's just not enough time in the day. but how we can leverage the knowledge that we do have and
Right.
package it in a way that people can consume it. And so that's where we came up with the financial pinwheel book that uses an analogy of a pinwheel to try to help people get a better idea of where they are, how money interacts with their life, so they can make more conscious and intentional decisions about what they
Yes.
want to do. So essentially, the pinwheel, if you think of a pinwheel, the pinwheel is your lifestyle expenses. So
Yep.
that's how much you're living on. If the pinwheel is spinning, you're meeting those expenses. If the pinwheel is not spinning, then you're not meeting those expenses. So it goes through kind of how you're powering that pinwheel now, which is
Yeah.
working, and how you can power it down the road. But again, being intentional, because we get to control the size of that pinwheel. If we want to
True.
let it get really big, it's going to be really hard to push around to get it to keep spinning.
Hmm.
So, again, not just like here's the formula to calculate cash flow, because that's boring. I don't want to read that.
Right.
But how do you react with money? How do you interact with it? How do you think about it in ways for this kind of simple analogy to help people better understand it and make, again, more intentional decisions for what they want to do, for what they would make them happy, by reading the book, and then the online resources as well, where I actually
Hmm.
go through videos to explain all of the concepts, because I mean, quite frankly, finances are intimidating for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So no matter how many, interviews I do, they might not be comfortable calling anybody to help them directly.
Right.
So
Yes.
if they're wanting to do it on their own, if they're more comfortable in that space, again, we want to create resources for them. So however
Right.
people want to consume it and however they're willing to let me try to help them, I want to try to put something out there to do so.
Of course. Of course. In that process of not only developing content for other people in terms of writing the book and writing these courses, and as you've journeyed through this career, if you will, what have been some pieces that you've installed for yourself that you didn't recognize that weren't embedded as part of who Joe is and how Joe operates and thinks?
I think when I first got into it, I was wanting to help people, but I was also just starting out and I was ambitious and I was wanting to get security financially for myself as well.
Right.
So it's funny how when I first started out, I would do the math and say, okay, I need X amount of clients at X amount of level to hit the point where I'd be comfortable.
Right.
And then that, stopped being the focus at some point. Some point in transition to not how many clients do we have, how much, assets do we need for me to be financially comfortable. It transitioned more into how do I help more people? And how do I
Mm.
help even more people after that? And so instead of being, part outward, part inward, it switched to being much more outward. And so
Right.
that's what we're trying to do, not just for clients, but also for the people that work here. So the people that work here, their hours are 9:30 to 4, which is very unusual. Usually it's 9 to 5. But the mentality that was started by the founder and that I'm very proud and honored to be able to continue is that we want people to be able to be home with their kids for breakfast, drive their kids to school, and also be home for them, to have dinner with them as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
So that's, we want to not just improve the lives of our clients, people that we may not never
Right.
ever meet now, but the people here we want as well. Like we want them to feel like part of a family. We feel like they're part of our family. We want this to enhance the rest of their life, not kind of
Yeah.
define it or box it in with the hours that we give them. And so it's been a much more developing from a strong internal, hey, what can I get out of it, to much more external, what can we give other people, whether it's
Hmm.
people that work here, clients, people we may never meet now with the book and the resources online. So
Hmm.
that's been a very, very big shift over the last 15 years.
Yeah. And it sounds like a fruitful one because perhaps you installed it 15 years ago, but I'm sure it's definitely held its stance in the last 3 or 4 years since we went through this thing called COVID that shut down the world. And people are craving more change and more stability and control of their own lives, of how they move through the world, but how much they interact with their own families to be home for breakfast and be home for dinner too. So
Yeah,
well done for installing that. Yeah.
those family connections are so important, and we saw how during those tough couple years
Hmm.
there, how mentally was very strenuous and
Yep.
very very difficult, especially for younger people. And
Sure.
so anything we do here, we want to be encouraging people that we're working with people that are here to be around their families more, to be
Yeah.
connecting with them. It's, I think I saw something like 75 or 80% of the time you spend with your children is between their age 0 and 12.
Right.
So, being very intentional, being very aware of that, and really leaning into that as much as possible, because
Hmm.
any parent that you talk to, they say it goes really fast. And so if
Yes,
everyone says it, it's got to be true. And
that's
I
right.
found it to be true myself so far with my two little kids. So
Yeah,
so giving people that opportunity, and there's so much negative news out there. There's so much, this is what you should be afraid of.
that's
So
right.
again, if they're including us as part of their circle, just like I said before, your mentorship or who you're
Hmm.
around, if we are one of the predominant people that they're being around, that are part of their lives, one of the most
Yes,
powerful influences, we want to make sure that we're treating that with respect and
yes,
knowing what a privilege that is, and putting out positive things in that space for them to be, enhancing their lives, as opposed to giving
right.
them more things to be afraid of.
What a great culture. What a great culture you're creating, not only for the other people who you work with and work for you, I'm going to say work with, but also that you've installed in your own life. So the upbringing of your own children based on your past and perhaps some of the experiences that your wife has had too is creating a much more stronger and perhaps a diverse experience for your own children as well. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And I had mentioned before, I have the one mentor at work. My other mentor is actually my father-in-law. And
Ah,
so they both taught me different things. So my father-in-law is there for you 100% of the time, all the time.
yes,
Whenever you need him, he's there. And
beautiful.
so he taught, I couldn't hammer a nail into a wall when I first met him. And now
Mm,
we built the deck, we built the bathroom, I built our dining room table, an entryway
very
bench. Like,
good.
I can do all of these things now, but it was not possible, if I
Yes,
didn't have my father-in-law in my life. So these people
yes,
can teach you, if you're open to it again, what are
absolutely.
ways that you can be, more present for your family today? What ways can you make a bigger impact for your friends, for your community around you? And so just
Hmm.
again, being open to that has been really, really helpful for me.
Hmm. Hmm. And perhaps a snapshot of all of this is allow yourself to receive and witness and acknowledge the people that come into your lives and do a little assessment of who is in our sphere. What are they adding or are they deleting something from our lives? And how can I grow? Because we may live in a world where selfish is is a bad word. But really, when we can better ourselves in who we are and how we move through the world, that enhances others. It
Yeah,
really
and
are.
and you see it with your children. So my daughter now, who is going to be 8, she talks to me about what she thinks she's going to write her book about when she gets
Mm,
older. But again, she sees her dad doing it. I saw my mentor doing it. So
yeah,
again, it's like you pass it on. You show them what's possible. If you show them that everything is difficult, that life is hard, that everyone's going to beat you down, that's the mentality your kids are most likely going to
that's
take
right.
too. That's the mentality people around you are probably going to take. So again, by seeing my daughter say those words, like I wasn't saying that at 8,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
so just showing that what you do matters, what you share with the people you care about
Yeah,
matters, and you broaden their opportunities for what they see as possible, for the impact they can make in life as
yeah.
well. And so it's not really selfish, because it passes on exponentially to the next person, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It has such a beautiful domino effect. And because it is in so much close proximity, it makes it more tangible. Because we all know lots of people, the libraries and the bookstores are all full of people who've written books. But when you're connected with somebody who has published, it has a very different connection. So, so yeah, it's a beautiful opportunity. And I'm sure not only your own family, but I think the clients that you serve can seize the opportunity of what else is possible in their lives and what other values can they bring to the table in making their own lives more enriching.
Absolutely. That's definitely what we try to do for them. And I'm fairly confident, don't want to be,
Hmm.
over the top, but I'm fairly confident that we do that for them. And that's definitely the focus of what we're trying to help them with.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Joe, I want to thank you for taking the time for this delightful conversation and your vulnerable and personal shares. of what you've gone through. However, it seems like you've definitely pulled the silver lining of your experiences to be able to share not only with your staff, your family, but on a broader scale, I want to say a global scale, as your book comes out soon and the online courses as well. So thank you for sharing your experiences. I appreciate you taking the time to have this discussion with me. So thank you again.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much for having me. I mean, it's people like you that give a platform to people that are trying to make a big impact in the world.
Mhm.
So, so appreciate you and being here today and the
Yeah,
work you're doing. So I hope you continue to have guests on and continue to share this message because I think it's such a great message for people to be consuming.
beautiful. Thank you so much.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.